Hello everybody, we are going to go over the quiz on the Pythagorean theorem and transformations of various functions. So let's begin at the beginning with number 1 over here. And let's see, determine the length of the missing side of the right triangle. And I can see that it gives me the length of the two legs, and I need the length of the hypotenuse. So that's going to be right over here, and we can give that a name. We can call it whatever we want. I'll call it C. So we know that 8 squared plus 15 squared has to equal C squared, which means basically that we're going to take the 8, take the 15, square them both, add them together, and then square root the answer. So that's going to give us 64. Plus 225 equals, let's see, 225 plus 60 would be 285, plus another 4 would be 289. So then I need the square root of 289. And the square root of 289 is 17. So it's a 1. So I know that C is going to be 17, which makes the answer choice 1. All right, moving down to question number 2. The graph at the right is the parent function, y equals x squared. What will the equation be if the parent function is translated 6 units down? So that means we're going to have to take the parent function there and subtract 6 from it, outside of the parentheses or outside of the absolute value symbol or outside of the radical, and what we end up with is y equals x squared minus 6, which is answer choice 2. Number 3 says, if the graph at the right is a transformation of the parent function y equals the square root of x, which choice is a possible equation for this function? Well, it's translated or shifted from the origin 6 to the left, and we know that if we, 4 to the left, not 6, and we know that if we have to translate something 4 to the left, then it's going to be minus 4 inside of the absolute value symbol or the parentheses or the radical, and the one that's got that is choice 1, because here we have x minus 4 underneath the radical. And going to the next page, let's see, a 12-foot wire is stretched from the top of a pole to a bracket located 6 feet from the base of the pole. So hopefully you drew a picture for that, and I'm going to do that. So the top of a pole, so here's the pole, and it's a 12-foot wire attached to a bracket. Here's the bracket located 6 feet from the base of the pole, and here's the wire. It's going to be a 12-foot wire, so you can see that here we have one leg and we have the hypotenuse. So in order to find the other leg, we're going to have to subtract instead of add. So we're going to have 12 squared, which is 144, minus 6 squared, which is 36, and that's going to equal, I ran out of room on the screen here, that's going to equal the other leg squared. So 144 minus 36 is 108. That's going to equal a squared. So then when we take the square root of 108 and we take the square root of a squared, that should be equals, we're going to have the square root of 108 equals a squared. And some people had a little bit of a hard time with this because they found a perfect square that goes into 108, but it wasn't the greatest perfect square. The greatest perfect square that's a factor of 108 is 36. So this 108 is going to become the square root of 36 times the square root of 3, because 3 times 36 is 108, and that's going to equal 6, because 6 is the square root of 36, times the square root of 3. So 6 radical 3 is the answer to that question. And this is another one of those nice transformations, and if you look for this point, this is what you should be looking for to see how it was translated, and you can see that it was just shifted down 2 from the origin. And translated 2 units down is choice number 3, so that is going to be our answer. And now we have this other part. 2 college roommates, Henry and Harry, leave college at the same time. Henry travels south. All right, so let's get the college in here. Here's the college. And Henry travels south at 30 miles an hour. And Harry travels west. So this is Henry. And then, oh, well, we'll make Harry a different letter. Harry travels west, we'll make Harry R, at 40 miles an hour. How far apart are they at the end of 1 hour? So if Harry goes 40 miles an hour for an hour, then he has traveled 40 miles. And if Henry goes 30 miles an hour for an hour, then Henry has traveled 30 miles. So what we have here is a right triangle. And we're trying to find out how far apart they are, and that's going to be our hypotenuse. So 40 squared is going to be 1600. 30 squared is going to be 900. Add them together, you get 2500. And then, of course, you have to square root it. So the square root of 2500 is 50. So the answer is going to be 50 miles. Okay, next one. The graph below is the parent function. What is an equation of a function that has been translated 7 units right and 2 units down? All right, so we're looking for an equation. So we need y equals, or f of x equals, or something equals in order to have an equation. And let's see, 7 units right means we're going to have to subtract 7 inside the parentheses. So it's going to be x minus 7, quantity squared. And 2 units down is going to be minus 2. So we have x minus 7 squared minus 2. And then if we graph this here, let's see, 7 units to the right and 2 units down. So here's our vertex. And then the points are going to be in the same position relative to the vertex as they are in the parent function, since we didn't have a stretch or a compression. So let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's that guy here, and there's that guy here. And there's a parabola. And now that I have 2 parabolas on the same coordinate plane, it's essential that I label them. So this is going to be y equals x minus 7, quantity squared, minus 2. Uh-oh, that's the bell. I'm going to have to pick this up in a little bit. Okay, I'm back. So here we see that the lengths of the sides of a triangle can be represented by consecutive even integers, and that the perimeter of the triangle is 24 light years. So if they're consecutive even integers, then we're going to have, one is going to be x, and one is going to be x plus 2, and one is going to be x plus 4. So if we know that the perimeter is 24, we can say x plus 2 plus x plus 4 equals 24. And then if we simplify that, we get 3x plus 6 equals 24. And then if we subtract x from both sides, if we subtract 6 from both sides, we get 3x equals 18. And then we have to divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals 6. So since x equals 6, we know that the length of one of our triangles is going to be 6, because that was x, And we know that the length of another leg of the triangle is going to be 8 because that's x plus 2. And we know that the other side of the triangle is going to be 10 because that's x plus 4. And then we have to answer the question, is the triangle a right triangle? Justify your answer with work and or words. So let's see, we get 6 squared plus 8 squared. Does that equal 10 squared? If the answer is yes, it's a right triangle. If the answer is no, it's not a right triangle. So here we get 36 plus 64. Is that equal to 100? And then we see 100 equals 100. So the answer is yes. It is a right triangle. And you can see that the work is very clear and very specific so that you can follow my train of thinking exactly just by looking at the work. And that's what your work should look like. Nobody who's looking at your work should have to guess about anything that you did. It should be very, very clear. I want to take a look at this last one in one more way, as if the question were slightly different. So, there we go. So suppose we didn't know what the perimeter was. Suppose we didn't know the perimeter was 24 light years. But, hey, get over there. Okay, suppose we didn't know that the perimeter was 24, but we did know that it was a right triangle. So suppose we know they're consecutive even integers. So we know that we have x and x plus 2 and x plus 4. And we're told that it's a right triangle, and we have to find the lengths of the sides. Well, what do we know? We know that x squared plus x plus 2 quantity squared has to equal x plus 4 quantity squared. And then if we expand this out, you can use the box method or however you like. We get x squared plus, and I'm just going to take this whole thing and make this x squared plus 4x plus 4 has got to be equal to, and once again you need to expand this out in whatever way you want, equals x squared plus 8x plus 16. Alright, so now we have this all set up, and let's see if we have any like terms we can combine. On this side, we're going to have, there it is, 2x squared plus 4x plus 4, and then this side's going to be the same, x squared plus 8x plus 16, and then you know that in order to solve a quadratic, it's got to be set equal to 0. So we're going to set this equal to 0. Minus x squared minus x squared minus 8x minus 8x minus 16 minus 16. And let's see what we end up with. 2x squared minus x squared is going to be x squared. 4x minus 8x is going to give us negative 4x, so x squared minus 4x, and 4 minus 16 is going to give us negative 12. So minus 12, and we subtracted out everything on the other side here, so that's going to be 0, equals 0. And then we can factor it. Then we need two numbers that multiply to negative 12, so that's going to have to be a positive and a negative, and they're going to have to add to negative 4. And since we don't have a coefficient here at all, or we have an imaginary coefficient of 1, we're going to have x and x. So let's see, what are those two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to negative 4? They're going to be negative 6 and positive 2. equals 0. So now we've got our factors, and we can set our factors equal to 0. X plus 2 equals 0, and x minus 6 equals 0. And when we solve for x, we get x equals negative 2, and x equals 6. Since this is a real-world problem involving distance, we're going to reject the negative value, and we're going to get x equals 6. And since you have x equals 6, we know that in our triangle, one side is going to be 6, and then another side is going to be x plus 2, which is 8, and another side is going to be x plus 4 equals 10. So that's how you can solve a problem like this using the Pythagorean theorem, even if you don't know ahead of time that the perimeter is going to be 24. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you guys next time.